book told from his perspective. So, I mean, all of this is in my head, you know what I mean? And then, you know, I'm also writing lots of this book during quarantine when America is doing the same thing with healthcare workers, right? It's like, oh, we thank our, you know, our nurses for their, you know, for their sacrifices, you know what I mean? As the nurses were dying en masse. I mean, COVID was an organic phenomena exacerbated immeasurably by human structures, and, you know, by imperialist, racist, colonial human structures. And so we were doing the same thing. We weren't using the language of religion, we were using a different, a more secular iteration of it, but it was the exact same thing as what Iran was doing, right? And so, like, it was very foregrounded in my mind, right? Like, if we sort of venerate these people and create some nobility around them. But I mean, like, some of the people dying were postal carriers, or, you know, people who worked at Burger King who couldn't afford to take off, you know what I mean? And there was not a commensurate veneration for those, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, all of this was in my head when I was writing this, and the idea of martyrdom, and like who gets to be declared a martyr, and how that can be weaponized, how that can be, regarding the main character's name, Cyrus, Korush, anglicized to Cyrus, is a common Persian name after like a famous Persian king, warrior, dude. It's like a very strong, like macho, sort of like it's like being named like bad or something, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know what I mean? Or like Butch. And yeah, it's just a funny foil to the character to me, who's very sort of squishy and self-doubt, just full of self-doubt, and has these grand sort of quixotic visions. And that was a very long answer. What's your name?
Oh, I think she raised her hand.
Sorry, I don't know. I can't keep track of order. Sorry. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Tanya.
Tanya, it's nice to meet you. I'm Kaveh.
Nice to meet you. I was wondering, before you ever got published, what is advice that you wish was given to you?
To be patient. Also, if you have to go, get a copy of the book before you leave. They're free. I mean, I understand that maybe you don't want to carry it around, but they're free. It makes a good like door jam or whatever. Before I got published, what advice do I wish I would have been given? I mean, I was so hard-headed that if you told me anything, I'd be like, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like I know what I'm doing. So like, I mean, like I teach at the University of Iowa, and so I talk to young people, or not even just young people. I mean, I talk to emerging writers all the time, and I'm thinking about their futures, and most of them are unpublished, and you know, most of them are very early in their journeys, and mostly what I want to say to them is like, chill. You know what I mean? Like it's a marathon, not a sprint. You know what I mean? And it's also one of the most sort of maddeningly linear things I've ever known, right? Which is to say, you put in X hours and you get Y better, and there's no real sort of like shibboleths, or this one secret will make you, you know, Toni Morrison, or, you know what I mean? Like there's no like writers hate this one crazy secret, you know? There's no short, I mean, like I used to teach at Florida State for a time, and this is when I was getting my PhD, and I remember I used to have to teach these like rhetoric composition classes, just like intro freshman writing classes. And there was one assignment that we did where it was like write an essay about something you're passionate about. Like that was basically the prompt, right? And Florida State at the time was something like 70% Greek, like 70% fraternities and sororities. So tells you something about the student population there. And so I got a lot of essays about bodybuilding, which is something that I knew nothing about. I mean, obviously, like I'm not see what's going on here. Like it's not something I have ever known anything about, you know? But one of the things that really moved me about those essays is that almost to an essay, they would all say like, a good body is the one thing that money can't buy. You know what I mean? Which is to say like, no one's gonna look like cut 70s Schwarzenegger, like all swollen and stuff. But I mean, yeah, I guess you could get like calf implants, or you know, like the people who like go nuts with that all look goofy. I'm sorry, I mean, the people. It rarely looks as organic as a Schwarzenegger type or whatever. And but they would always say, like, there's no shortcut, you just have to be, like, in the gym, you know, twice a day, every day for, like, 10 years to look like that, you know, whatever. And I think writing is the same way, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's like, oh, I just gotta, if only, you know, the agent would write this thing, or if only I could find the right agent to read this thing that I wrote, or whatever. And it's like, I always tell my students, like, if you write the best thing that you're ever gonna write in my class, then I will have failed you. You know what I mean? Like, the idea of me endlessly rehabilitating anything that they've written to, like, sort of sandpaper a 6 out of 10 poem into a 8 out of 10 poem, or, you know what I mean? Like, mostly what I want to say is, like, it's incredible that you just brought from the ether that which never would have existed had it not been for you being here in this moment to write it down. Like, what a profound gift that is, what a miracle that is, like, creation occurring against all of the looming odds against it. And I'm so grateful that you've elected to trust me with it, to share it with me. Like, that too feels like a profound gift. Now go do it again. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel about it, right? So yeah, I mean, my advice is to do whatever you need to do to keep yourself in the game, right? Also, just like, I mean, as a poet, there's no replacement for just like going to the library and pulling random shit off the 811.5 shelf and just like sitting down for 6 hours and reading stuff that you would never know to read. I mean, like, again, you put in X hours and you get Y better. And I mean, if anyone's discovered a shortcut, I haven't heard of it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I apologize about the order. I'll do you and then you friend and then you friend. Is that okay? What's your name?
So, you know,
What's your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Elton.
Elton, it's nice to meet you.
You title your book, Martyr, exclamation mark.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's going to be some religious connotation that you want to write about, but then immediately you come with profanities in your writing. Was that intentional?
Yeah. So good question, Elton. Thank you for that. Yeah, the title of the book is Martyr, exclamation point, importantly. The exclamation point is important, I think. And yeah, the book is full of profanity and drugs and piss and poop and sex and yeah, I mean, it just is because my life is, you know what I mean? Like, the same brain that I use to contemplate God wants me to put a needle in my heart. You know what I mean? Like, the same brain that I use to tell, the same mouth that I use to tell my spouse that I love them, you know, used to ingest any old thing, you know, whatever was lying around, you know what I mean? And so there's no extricating the two, to my mind. And also, I think it's a really interesting quote. One of my favorite poems of all time is by this poet, Jean Valentine, Jean, Valentine spelled like a holiday. It's called I Came to You, and it goes like this. Again, this poem is by Jean Valentine, not me, but it's called I Came to You. I came to you, Lord, because of the fucking reticence of the world. No, not the world, not reticence. Oh, Lord, come. Lord, come. We were sad on the ground. Lord, come. We were sad on the ground. And that's the whole poem. And I love it so much for a million reasons. I'm not going to get into all of them, but just quickly, like, the poem opens with her saying, I came to you, Lord, right? So we begin in this kind of liturgical religious register, right? We begin in a direct address to God, right? Which is the language of prayer, the language of gospel, right? And then the next line, I came to you, Lord, because of the fucking reticence of the world, right? Reticence, kind of like hesitation or, you know, skepticism a little bit. I came to you, Lord, because of the fucking reticence of the world, right? You'd be hard pressed to find a less liturgical religious word than fucking, you know what I mean? Although, you know, Song of Songs is pretty spicy, but I say that to say, right, like, immediately she's introduced a particular kind of register, a particular kind of address, a particular sound, and then she's immediately undercut it, right? She's immediately shifted that. And so already, like, as a listener, when you heard that poem, when I said, I came to you, Lord, because of the fucking reticence of the world, immediately you're leaning in. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, what? You know what I mean? Like already you're leaning in. And I think that's really powerful, right? I think that's a really, really powerful human thing, right? Like to get the reader kind of leaning in and being like, wait, what did he say? You know what I mean? And so there's some of that to it as well, right? Like this idea that my experience of life on the planet is sacred and full of occasions for bafflement and wonder. You know what I mean? Like every tree that you walk past out there when you come to class today or when you come to this thing began its life as starlight from a star 93 million miles away. You know what I mean? Like 93 million miles away, those photons traveled to Earth, weighing nothing, hit the chlorophyll inside a plant seed, became matter, right? Became something that you could put on a scale. I'm getting used to what I'm talking about. Became matter that you could put on a scale and weigh, right? Like you can weigh nothing, 93 million miles away, comes to Earth, becomes something that you can weigh on a scale, and then that predicates all organic life on the planet, right? That's magic. You know what I mean? Like you can call it photosynthesis or whatever, but like naming magic doesn't make it not magic. You know what I mean? Like that's magic, right? And so like I'm alive in a time when I'm aware of that, and I'm aware that right now, this second, my taxes are funding bombs to be dropped on innocent civilians in Gaza, and that there's another genocide happening in Sudan, right? And there's massive healthcare inequity within this country. And you know what I'm saying? Like all of these things are concurrent for me in my consciousness, and I want my art to reflect that sort of like density of contemporary experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Friend here, friend here, friend here again.
Judy Hauser, Florida State graduate.
What is it?